Hello friends, we are here to discuss about the freedom of speech and expression. Long time ago, India had a tryst with destiny. The time has now come to redeem that pledge. At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India awakens to freedom and glory. These words spoken by our first Prime Minister, Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru, echoed not just within the walls of the parliament, but from each and every corner of our newly born nation. So, why am I a free citizen? What ensures my freedom? The Constitution of India that came into being on the 26th of January 1950 ensures that I have a whole set of freedoms, amongst which freedom of speech and expression is an integral clause. The Constitution of India is the supreme law of the land. It is a national written document. It is the longest constitution of any sovereign nation in the world. It is the instrument based on which the government machinery works. It provides for us, citizens, a set of fundamental rights, directive principles and duties. It is the machinery based on which governments must make their policies, their fundamental rules, and it is their true guidebook based on which they must run the country. The Constitution contains 448 articles in 25 parts, 12 schedules, 5 appendices, and 98 amendments. The Constitution of India provides for the citizens 6 fundamental rights. The right to equality. This right is a basic right. We are all equal in the eyes of not just the law, but in the eyes of our motherland, in the eyes of each other. We are all equal, brothers and children of our motherland. So, there shall not be any kind of inequality because I have a right to be equal to my fellow citizen. The next right would be the right against exploitation. If a person works for a certain number of hours and he gives his best labor, then it is his right to get paid for it. He must have that wage which is not exploiting his time and his effort. So this is also provided amongst the rights of the citizen by our Constitution. A person also has the right to freedom of religion. A person has the choice of choosing which religious belief that he wants to believe. A person who lives in India can follow any religion. A person who is a citizen of India also has cultural and educational rights. India is a land that has diverse cultures and people from different communities and different backgrounds. They live together as brothers. The spectrum is large, and that is what makes India a unique land where people of different cultures learn about each other and they become brothers. Fellow citizens are brothers who are children of the motherland. So, we as citizens have the right to our cultural heritage and also a right to education. We also have a right to constitutional remedies, which means that if any of our rights are taken away from us or if there is any kind of injustice, then we have the right to claim justice from the judiciary of our country. And finally, the right to freedom. The right to freedom is going to be discussed further in this next part of the class. Amongst these freedoms, the right to freedom of speech and expression is what we are going to learn about today. The right to freedom is guaranteed within Article 19 and 22 of the Constitution of India. Article 19 of the Constitution provides A. Freedom of speech and expression. B. Freedom to assemble peacefully without arms. Freedom to form associations and unions. Freedom to move freely throughout the territory of India. Freedom to reside and settle in any part of India. Freedom to practice any profession or to carry any occupation, trade or business. Clause 1A of Article 19 of our Constitution states that all citizens shall have the right to freedom of speech and expression. This is a basic right. It's a basic human right. We human beings are social in nature and we must interact with each other from time to time. Without interaction, we will lose ourselves. The right to freedom of speech and expression is not just limited to spoken words. We can express ourselves through books, through television, through radio, by writing blogs on the internet, by updating our Facebook status, by utilizing the camera and making movies. The freedom of speech and expression allows us the right to make informed decisions. If we do not indulge in discussions, political discussions with our fellow citizens, how will we make the right decision when we go out to vote? We must be informed by our fellow citizen who expresses the information that he has. And so once I know from him about a certain incident which affects me, I will be more informed when I cast my vote. So, politically, socially, I must be discussing my environment with my fellow citizens. This is possible when I have this freedom of free speech and expression. The Constitution guarantees this freedom. In Article 32 of the Constitution, we have been gifted that we can seek remedies, we can seek justice when this right is taken away from us. But my free expression, my free speech cannot hurt a fellow citizen. It cannot hurt my country. My free speech must also be responsible. My expression must be such that it does not harm others. Thus, the Constitution has restricted this right and limited this right to an extent where there is a balance of freedom and responsibility. Article 19(2) of the Constitution outlines the reasonable restrictions to the freedom of speech and expression. The freedom of speech and expression of a citizen cannot harm the security of the state. I cannot be allowed as a citizen to express myself in such a way that it helps the enemies of the state. We as a country enjoy friendly relations with a host of other countries. We are ourselves a friendly country. So, we must as citizens keep in mind that we do not hamper the relations of our country with other countries. A foreign ally is an asset to India. So as part of India, I cannot express in such a way that will make the relationship of India with another foreign country go bad. I must be more responsible when it comes to making judgments or making a speech or expressing myself in regards to foreign nationals, to foreign countries, issues which are of issues which are undergoing negotiations, because not only in terms of the relationship, not only in terms of trade, many things can go wrong if the relationship between two foreign countries are put at risk. So we must be very careful when we express ourselves in any sense in this regard. The next restriction is in terms of public order. What is public order? The Supreme Court defines public order as public tranquility and peace. So, if there is a statement made or a film that is expressed which results in riots, which results in violence, which results in disruption of the tranquil nature of the public, then I am at fault. I cannot be allowed as a citizen to do that. For the greater interest of the public, the Constitution has restricted my freedom in this regard such that I cannot express or say anything which will incite chaos, which will result in the loss of public order. This was added to the Constitution during the First Amendment in 1951 in order to meet the situation that arose from the Supreme Court order on a case on Ramesh Thapar. In the Kishori Mohan versus State of West Bengal case, the Supreme Court explained the differences between the three concepts of law and order, public order, and security of the state. Public order has only got to do with public peace and tranquility, the opposite of which would be riots and chaos and violent protests. So, there cannot be an expression, there cannot be a statement made which incites this chaos, because public order ensures that even I as a citizen and my family is safe. So, public order must be maintained at all costs, and freedom of speech and expression, when taken too far, can actually incite riots. So be very careful whilst expressing yourselves. Please keep in mind that you are not making a statement that incites chaos. The next restriction to the freedom of speech and expression is in regards to decency and morality. We as a nation are home to various communities and people coming from different cultures who may be offended by the showcase of certain types of content. So the showcase of indecent or immoral expression is restricted. But this restriction is sometimes misused as well. For example, in 2005, Indian film actress Khushbu was charged on 22 counts of obscenity for having made a statement in an interview. The statement was that Indian women can have premarital sex given that they take the necessary health precautions so that disease is not transmitted. So based on this, she was charged criminally. But the Supreme Court has quashed all these cases that were put up against her recently. Also, for example, Maqbul Fida Hussain, one of the most celebrated artists who ever lived, was also criticized for having depicted images of Hindu goddesses in his own expressive way. Now, these paintings were constructed in the 70s but came under a lot of criticism and fire when it was printed in a magazine. He had to leave India because of the advent of criticism and because of the legal and the governmental pressures put on him in this regard. So we can understand that there must also be a balance of aesthetic, of what is indecent, what is obscene, and what is aesthetic. So, friends, here we have come across incidents where the reasonable restrictions that were imposed by the Constitution for the well-being of our right to freedom of speech and expression has been misutilized. The next restriction to the freedom of speech and expression is evident by its name: contempt of court. The contempt of court has been defined in Section 2 of the Contempt of Courts Act of 1971. Contempt of court can be civil contempt or criminal contempt. Recently, Justice N. Kirubakaran of the Madras High Court pointed out that there are a lot of contempt of court cases that are pending, and there is a surge in the number of such cases being reported. The number of contempt of court cases has gone up from 421 in 1990 to 2,900 in 2011. This is a showcase of the decrease in the respect for the court, not just by individuals but also by governments. The judge made this observation during the case of a 92-year-old freedom fighter. And despite the court orders, authorities were delaying the disbursal of relief. So this was a case where there was a contempt of court, not by expressing an opinion, but by the authorities in delaying. So the contempt of court has a broader purview, but incidents like using abusive language inside a courtroom, insulting the judge, not abiding by a court directive, these are cases where contempt of court has been made. The next restriction to our freedom of speech and expression is defamation. We cannot defame another individual. If we defame another individual by expressing words, expressing information that is untrue about him and malign his image, he will lose his face in society. He may lose his job. So we must be very careful as to how we conduct ourselves and what we say or write or express about others. Defamation is a criminal offence under Section 499 of the Indian Penal Code. Also, a restriction is when my expression incites a violent act. So, incitement of violence is not possible because it is restricted by the Indian Constitution in regards to the freedom of speech and expression. For example, recently Member of Parliament Taposh Pal made a hate speech inciting people to commit violent acts. That is unacceptable. Because people who are in power, they have this, they can work their charm and incite people to commit positive acts and negative acts. People like Gandhi incited people to be non-violent. So, we must keep in mind this restriction and why it is in place. The freedom of speech and expression is restricted when it hurts the sovereignty and integrity of India. We cannot hurt the sovereignty and integrity of our motherland. We must be very responsible when making comments on our motherland. So, there have been various instances where such comments have been made, such expressions have come up. For example, Salman Rushdie's book, Satanic Verses, it created a mass uprising amongst a certain community. And it was not done on purpose, but it resulted in the book being banned here in India. Before we won our independence, the British had put on various restrictions on our freedom of expressing ourselves, because our nature of expressing and discussing resulted in mobilizing the masses. So, be it the Vernacular Press Act or the crime committed at Jallianwala Bagh when there was a peaceful gathering, the British have always tried to take away this basic human right from us. And we won our freedom by using this basic human right. Mahatma Gandhi mobilized the masses and went on the Dandi March just by voicing the opinion of the people. And the people followed him. So, we must keep in mind that the freedom fighters, the patriots, the martyrs of our country have put up a big effort to achieve this freedom. And I have this freedom, you have this freedom of expressing yourselves to your complete fulfillment because of these leaders. So, we must also be responsible that our nation goes forward and progresses to great and greater heights, and that our freedom can be handed down to the next generation, and that our freedom does not hurt a fellow citizen who is a brother, and we are children of the same mother, that is India.